Oh, all of okay. All of the oops, wait, hold on, my music is not playing in the correct place. Let me fix that. Yes, all of the sub notifications are going off at the same time because I guess they stacked up while we were waiting. Yes, hello, welcome everybody. Yes, I'll wait for the sub thingies. Oh wait, they're done. Okay, good, good. I was like, we probably shouldn't. Oh no, they're still going. Okay. Thank you, Ziva, for subscribing again. Yes, today, I know it is a highly anticipated stream where we will cover merch making. So I think the way that I kind of have this formatted in my mind is that I put together a little presentation so I can walk through that first and make my points, and then at the end then we can do the Ask Me Anything section, or you guys can ask things as we go along in the presentation. So yes, for the people who did not know, I get a lot of I get a lot of DMs from people asking like questions or for tips and stuff about how to get started with making merch, or like how to approach it, or you know, how to do whatever fine manufacture, make whatever X thing. And it's like, honestly, it's a little bit too much for me to reply to people individually in each DM every time and basically tell them the same thing over and over again. Thank you for subscribing again, Kogarashi. There will be no quiz. So I decided, instead of answering people's DMs and, you know, telling them the same thing over and over again, we can just do this stream and then we can address everything kind of in one place. And then I will save it as a VOD so that I can direct people to it in the future. So it'll become a public resource forever and ever. Okay, let us go to the presentation. Okay, so here we have Merch Making 101. So a little bit about, I don't know, I probably don't need to tell you my credentials because that's kind of, you know, whenever you have to like go to introduce yourself at like a meeting or a conference or whatever, and people are like, oh, tell us about you. I hate that. Especially when I was in college and people would be like, oh, you have to do like icebreakers, tell us some fun facts about you. I hate doing that, so we're not gonna do that. Yes, I'm a very busy bun. I have a bunch of big conventions coming up and I'm grinding hard for them. Thank you for subscribing again, Mocha Magica. Yes, I am Bun Icebreaker. We're done with the icebreakers. That's all you need to know. You've actually introduced yourself with I'm here and I know what you want to know. Continuing. Okay, so let us move on. So I think the merch making process is a lot more than just designing the thing and submitting it to manufacturers and getting it made. Like, there's a lot of moving parts that go into this whole like process, and there's a lot of other considerations that you need to be making, like even before you start, so that your merch will be successful. Because you know what sucks is if you order a whole bunch of stuff and have it made and you spend money and then it doesn't do well and you have it just sitting around in your house forever. Yeah, we don't want that to happen. So there are some things that I think you need to think about beforehand before you make anything or design anything. And so I think some of the starting questions are you need to think about first of all you need to think about like your goals and your expectations. Like, are you a hobbyist who is just making something from a fandom or your original stuff or whatever just for fun, for your own satisfaction? Like, I really want to have this item and I just want a way to, fund it and share it with a few other people. Or are you somebody who's like, I want to profit off of my work and I want to see like returns on this? So I think like, setting your expectations from the beginning is very important, because then I know there's a lot of people who get into making something and then they end up really disappointed because their expectations are not in line with what they were able to contribute to the process. So if the success of your merch is a very big deal to you, which I think that's the case for most people, we want to profit off of our work for the most part. I can't speak for everyone, but I think everybody in general wants to see some returns on their time and effort, right? So you need to first think about your audience and the kind of content you already create and the kind of people who consume your content. You need to think about like the demographics of these people. Like, what are these people into? What do they follow me for? What is their approximate like age range? This is important, okay? The age range is very important. Oh, okay, we'll stack a bun. Thank you. One more bun for the stack. There you go. And okay, so the reason why the age range is important is because if you create things that are targeted towards people who are like 15 or 16 years old, I'm gonna be honest with you, 15 and 16-year-olds do not have a lot of disposable income. So, and I mean, some of them don't even have any way of purchasing things online without their parents. And, that is going to be a factor in how you consider, like, oh, well, if most of my audience is kids and, young teens or people who generally would not be or cannot be buying merch, then that's already like, a little bump in the road you have to consider. Yes, you must consider your target market. So this will also factor into things like prices for your items, because if your target market is people age like 16 or 17, and say they do want to buy merch, but I think, since they don't have as much disposable income, and, there's all these factors considered, they probably will not be able to, spend money on like a $100 item from you. They're more likely to be able to buy things that are, smaller, like stickers, like things that are maybe between like $5 and $10. So these are, you really have to think about your audience before you start, because I've seen a lot of people who have like a lot of followers, but the followers are all like 14, and then, their merch project fails because none of the 14-year-olds are buying their things. Okay. Then the next thing you want to consider is your strengths and your like aesthetic or your brand. So for example, I've said this before in other streams, but let's talk about like chibis. Oh, hello, Kemi-tan. So let's talk about like chibis, okay? So chibis are like low barrier to entry in that, almost anyone can like pick up and start drawing chibis that are identifiable as chibis, right? But it's very difficult to actually draw chibis that are really cute, really appealing, and stand out. Because, like, I do not mean this in a, I don't mean to be mean when I say this, but it is very easy to draw chibis that are not appealing, and a lot of people might make merch of their chibis that are not as appealing, and then they don't do well. So, like, you have to, if that's like what's going on, you might want to consider maybe I'm not gonna make merch of chibis if chibis are not my forte. Like, you should be playing to the strengths of what you understand to be like your standout points in your work. Eh? Oh, I might want to scoot to the. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize I was blocking. My big head is blocking. I'll block chat instead. Thank you, Kels. Now I'm blocking the people's words instead of my words, because my words are more important right now. Okay, let's see. What was I? Okay, we're still talking about oh, your brand and your aesthetic. Okay, so I'll go a little bit more into this later, but another thing you want to consider is consistent aesthetic for your content. And I'm sure people who are a little bit more well versed in like presenting their stuff on social media already kind of know this, but you want to produce things that are consistent with your online image with your audience, because it's very important that people can still connect it back to you as your work and identify it as something that's tied to your name, so it holds more value that way. Oh, thank you for subscribing again, Miss Starry. Yes, so I know sticking to a consistent aesthetic and branding is really, really hard. At least for me it is, because I have like, if you ask me what my favorite color is, I have like so many colors that I like. It's hard for me to pick favorites, and I constantly have all of these ideas about things I want to make, and these ideas are not always, they're not always in the same vein of aesthetic as each other. Oh, okay, hydrate and stretch. Let me get my water, thank you. And stretch. Okay. Yes, so you need, or I guess you don't need, but it is my strong recommendation that you consider making your merch designs in a consistent like style and branding and aesthetic as your other work you present. Hello Blue, hello Raiders. Thank you for coming. We're going through our little informational talk right now, giving a little presentation on how to make merch. And we just got into it not that long ago, so we're still pretty early into the talk. I hope you had a good stream. I think, if I am not mistaken, I think Blue was playing Pokemon earlier. Yes, I hope you had fun. Okay, so the other consideration that we need to be making before you actually make anything is you need to identify things like how much you are willing to invest in a merch project, because inevitably there is no way to guarantee that anything you make will be successful. Just like, I know this is kind of a scary concept for some people, but it really is like that way. Everything in life is this way. You cannot guarantee success in anything. Thank you for subscribing again, Hiro. We are just starting in our presentation today. So identifying how much you are willing to put into and potentially lose in a merch project. So like this is just a very general concept and I'm sure you've all heard it before, but you do not put all of your eggs in one basket. Which means if you have $500 in savings and that's all of your money, you are not going to spend $450 on a merch project. It's a bad idea. Objectively, don't do it. Stack a bun. Okay, one more bun for the stack. So, my recommendation is that early on, you figure out exactly how much money, or the range of how much money you are willing to invest in a project, and also the range of how many hours you think you will be willing to invest in working on a merch project. So that, later you can draw some hard lines for yourself if it comes to it. And this is also, identifying all this stuff is important in what I mentioned before with, setting your expectations. Because, you have to set some, lines and bars for yourself about what you can and cannot afford to do. Okay, so one more point I want to touch on before we move on to more of the actual making is that I want to address this idea of follower base or numbers, social media numbers, because a lot of people thrive in their merch sales and their merch production by presenting their content online. I think that's the case for most of us here. And remember how before I said that if you have a lot of followers but all of your followers are 14, they're probably not going to be buying very much. So in that way, if you I just want to say that if you have a lot of followers, being a quote-unquote big account, it doesn't guarantee you anything, but also it means that if you're not a big account, you're not necessarily doomed, okay? When I started making merch and doing stuff full-time, I had I don't know, less than 2,000 followers, okay? And it just happened that most of my followers were just very engaged and very active, and also adults or young adults with disposable income they could spend. What types of merch would I recommend people who are just starting out? Okay, yes, I actually do have I have a little list that I will get to in a little bit with recommended merch types for beginners and intermediate people and whatever. So we will get to that very soon. Yes, so yeah. I don't want to say that certain types of followers are not valuable. Oh, welcome Bean, hello. It's okay, you didn't miss too much. We were just talking about stuff you have to consider beforehand. This is super helpful. I'm glad if you guys are finding it helpful already. Even though I didn't even get into the actual merch making part yet. Thank you for dropping your Prime sub. Yeah, so just because you're a big account, or if you see people with big accounts, doesn't mean they're particularly successful. Because they could have 20k followers, but what if 15k of those followers are 13? You're glad I was able to make this at a time you could come. Yes, also for the people who have to run or can't make it, I will be putting the VOD on YouTube later. Okay, so with that said, let's go to the next point. Oh, actually, I meant to click on this slide before. But I forgot that I made it. Yeah, so you can absolutely be a so-called small account and still have a successful merch run as long as you have your expectations in line, and if you have like the right ingredients, which is your audience, and you make something that caters to the audience. Does this involve merch and tabling at conventions or just selling merch online? So this will involve merch at conventions and tabling too. I kind of tried to make this presentation like sort of generalized so that it'll like we can tackle both of those angles, because they're both like things that I do. they're both like ways that I get a significant portion of my income. The Gengar made you choke on your water. Yes. Okay, next. So deciding what to make. So here we'll get into my recommendations for different, like people who are at different stages in their comfort level and growth with making things. So beginner-friendly things. So my recommendations for these are based on stuff like low minimum order quantity, which for people who don't know, when you get things produced by a manufacturer, a lot of the time, there's something called a minimum order quantity, which is, it's kind of what it sounds like. It's basically like the manufacturer says, oh, you need to place at least 10 of this design in order to put in an order with us. So, or like you need to purchase at least 50 pieces or 100 pieces. So the things that I am listing here for beginners are stuff that have low minimum order quantity. They have a relatively low price per piece unit cost. And they're small, so they won't take up a ton of space, and they're things that are also relatively easy to ship. So just, things that are basically accessible, and you can probably achieve a merch run of some of these smaller things for, a couple $100. Say if you wanted to do a small run of like acrylic charms. So beginner things I recommend are like stickers, like vinyl stickers, acrylic charms, buttons, and some of these things you can even make at home, like stickers. Oh, prints. Yes, you can do prints too, but I personally like that they're very like cheap to do actually. The only reason why I didn't put prints here was because I personally don't really do them, because I think that people are less likely to buy prints like online. Like they'll buy them at conventions, but in my experience, people don't really buy prints online very much. And so I find them a little bit harder to sell. But with prints, it's you can absolutely like do things like postcard prints and be, those are also something easy to get into. Will I post the slideshow later? I wasn't planning to make the slideshow public because there's not that much information on it, but I will be making the VOD available on YouTube later, so it'll stay as a permanent resource. Usually buy prints at conventions instead of online. Yeah, my experience with prints is that they do pretty well at in-person events like conventions and not nearly as well online. I don't know, like something about seeing prints at the convention compels people to buy them, but then when they see them online, like the purchase rate goes way down. So yeah, so all of these things, like you can do a small run of a couple designs of acrylic charms for like a couple $100. Like stickers and buttons are like that too. Stickers you can even make at home. perhaps not the vinyl stickers, that's better if you outsource those, but if you want to do like sticker sheets, you can, buy a color printer, buy some sticker paper, and get like a silhouette cutting machine, and you can do like paper stickers by yourself at home. I've done that before. Prints also tend to not have really good longevity. Yeah, it depends on what you drew the print of, but I find that they're always a little bit... they're tricky. Yes, you can also get them signed in real life. Okay, so I'm sure there's a few other like small batch things, like maybe lanyards, but I haven't really made lanyards in a long time. I think the most approachable thing for most people to get into would be stickers. That's like the lowest barrier to entry. And also stickers are very light, which means you can ship them a little bit more easily. Okay, so the next is like intermediate. So let's say you've made some charms or whatever before. You've made stickers, charms, you're doing kind of okay. You have a little bit of merch making experience and you want to start like stepping up and do slightly more complicated things. Then my recommendations would be things like pins, mouse pads. You can do small runs of apparel, like especially if you find like a local t-shirt printing place or something. Sticker Mule has deals sometimes. Personally, for my own like personal reasons, because I kind of don't agree with some things that Sticker Mule has gotten into. My recommendation for sticker printing would be Sticker Ninja instead. Yeah. So you can do like pins, apparel, mouse pads, other things like group orders like pencil pouches, or just those types of like medium-sized items. The reason why I specifically say domestically produced apparel and like tote bags and stuff here is because I'll get into it in the next slide, but there is a difference between producing apparel domestically and internationally. And there's like pros and cons to each, but for intermediate, I'll say domestically because that's what I started with, and that's what a lot of other artists I know started with. And you can do like smallish batches. In most of my experience with domestically printed apparel is the MOQ is something kind of like maybe 30-ish pieces for a lot of places. So it's still manageable, but it'll be a bigger investment than, the charms and stuff. I put pins here in the intermediate section and not the beginner section because there's a little bit more involved knowledge involved with making pins. You have to know how to pick Pantone colors, and you'll have to know how to vectorize your art, like Adobe Illustrator. And most places that I've worked with for pins, the minimum order quantity is 100 pieces per design or something like that. And I think that someone who's starting out with making merch for the first time, I would not really recommend throwing like a couple $100s into making 100 pieces of a single design. Because, if it doesn't do well, then you are stuck with 100 pieces. So that's my reasoning behind that. Let me turn on my light because it's getting a little dark in here. If you don't like Adobe Illustrator, you would recommend Affinity. Yeah, basically as long as you can export your file as an Illustrator file, then it'll be fine because the manufacturers need Illustrator files, basically. Okay, so then advanced, big merch items, big. So these are for when you're pretty deep into it, and it's what I have been making a lot of the last several months. Big, yes. This is where the fully custom apparel, like internationally produced things, bags, plushies, you might have been seeing things like cardigans floating around, or like Ita bags and stuff. Like those big items that have a lot of custom components. So the reason why I put this in the advanced category is because usually there's a lot of prep work involved in making these with your design spec sheets and whatever. And there's a lot more research you have to do, like for materials, because everything can be custom basically, which means you construct the whole thing yourself. Which means, conversely, you have to give them all of the instructions on like, oh, I want this material and this method of putting it together, and you have to like research the different manufacturing methods of how people like sew things or print things. You have your bun sitting on your bed threateningly. Yes, I also have 2 buns sitting on my bed, glaring at me threateningly. This is what you really want to learn how to do, because you want to provide a limited but quality drop. Yeah, I'll get a little bit more into how I approach this later. Agree with earlier topic on stickers. Sticker mule is kind of an avoid if possible. Yes. Hello, Rin, by the way. Yeah. I like Sticker Ninja because also they're just very nice. I like them. I haven't tried Sticker App, but I've heard good things about them. And also Sticker Giant, I've heard people liked. But yeah, I know Sticker Mule has some good deals, but if you can, I would encourage going elsewhere. Bunnies and cream is good too. Oh yes, I haven't heard of them, but their name is super cute. So, also the other reason why these are like advanced is because for these things, you generally need to make a lot of them. Like the MOQ, very high. And generally you cannot have these produced domestically, they'll have to be international, which means you'll have to go through the whole process of finding a factory and having language barriers, communication problems. The MOQ is something like, often starting at 100 to 200 pieces of something. The MOQ is so high on this. Yeah, like I think with the plushes, the MOQ was like 100 pieces, which is actually a lot lower than I thought it would be. Yeah, the problem, like the reason why this type of merch is generally not accessible to a lot of people is because of things like high upfront cost. 100 isn't bad, but storage adds up fast. Oh, I have a story about storage coming up very soon. Yeah, when I got the bun plush, I ordered a little bit under 200 pieces of them, and I think I still have pictures float. Like, I never took all of them out at once, but I had a period of time in which my room was just flooded with buns. Just everywhere. Uncontrollable. An explosion. An invasion. And traveling with it for conventions is also hard. Yes, that is... I have a lot to say on that coming up because I travel for a lot of conventions, as you know, and the logistics are a nightmare. Bunvasion. Yes, hello, corn dog. You're sad you never saw this. You need to find these. Oh, I still have some. Actually, I still have all of these. So don't worry. You hope your bun was one of them that was body slammed. You know, basically every single bun that has passed through my hands has been personally squished by me, so. Some of them have been squished a little bit more aggressively. Some of them have been slapped, sat on, maybe. Laid on top of. Storage is the biggest hurdle for you right now. Oh no, yeah, apartments are a nightmare for storage for this. Oops. Okay, never mind. We'll go to the next slide. Okay. So, domestic production versus overseas production. So, I kind of touched on this a little bit before, but you can produce things like some types of things you can make entirely by yourself. Like, I mentioned stickers, like sticker sheets. You can print and cut those at home, but for some things, as you start to scale, like to a degree, you could do things like screen printing of tote bags and t-shirts also by yourself, but you have to start thinking about like how much your time is worth and the amount of equipment that takes, and you know, just all of that factored together. At some point it becomes a lot more cost effective to just outsource that to someone else while you work on designing things. Can't believe you subjected everyone to this figure. I just had to put it in here somewhere, okay? This is a deeply cursed image that it belongs in my history now. I can't get rid of it, so I've chosen to embrace it. So with the things like apparel and t-shirts, I mentioned before that there's generally two ways you can go about it, which is domestic production and overseas production. So when you produce apparel domestically, what happens is you have to pick a blank. A blank is an existing blank piece of apparel. So what happens is companies produce these things called blanks, which are like a preset pattern, preset colors, preset construction. And you, as the customer, you go and you pick a blank, and then you tell your t-shirt printing shop, I want to print on this blank. A blank is a blank. Noted. Yeah, so you pick out the blanks, which, you know, can come in a lot of different qualities and materials and whatever, but, you know, there's some certain restrictions there. And then you take it to your t-shirt shop and you're like, I want to use this blank in this color and I want to use this method of printing on it. And then the shop will be like, okay, and usually you'll have a certain amount of limitation you have to work around. Things like, if you do screen printing, the cost per piece goes up with how many colors you use. So a lot of the screen printed apparel that I've made in the past, I tried to keep it 3 colors or below for the ink, because once you start going above that, then the cost just like skyrockets astronomically. So that's like something you have to consider when you're planning for your design and whatever. And the other limitation here is that, you know, the blanks only come in the preset colors. So if you want to find like a certain type of base color to work with, you're gonna have to spend some time trawling through like a database of blanks and trying to find like, you know, one that suits your purposes. Oops. It didn't mean, okay. Anyway, the database that my local place uses is called Alpha Broder. So in the past, what I would do is I would go and search on Alpha Broder for like different blanks that looked kind of like they were fitting the idea of what I wanted. like material wise or like how it was cut or, different colors. And then I would send the link to my manufacturer and be like, I would like to use this blank. Can we use this one? And they'd be like, okay, or no. And then I would have to come up with a different like way to go if they said no. So I would say that domestic production it's good for if you are producing maybe like 100 pieces or less of a design. Somewhere between like 30 and 100 pieces of your t-shirt or whatever. Because you typically get a small discount for placing an order with like a higher volume. But there's like diminishing returns here. There's a point at which that kind of caps out and you kind of no longer start to get significant discounts anymore. Is there a good way to get tests on blanks? Do they offer like a test you can see how certain prints are or fabrics feel? Okay, so my recommendation for blanks is if you can, if you go into like a local t-shirt printing shop, a lot of them will carry samples of the more popular blanks in store. So what I like to do is I like to go into the physical store and then just go touch everything. And then I like keep notes of like which ones I liked or, whatever. It's difficult to get like test prints on a specific blank unless you pay for it. Most blanks will kind of, like in the case of screen printing, most blanks will kind of print similarly because screen printing is a very thick ink most of the time and it's opaque. But in terms of like, if you want to see texture and colors in real life, then I definitely recommend walking into like a local place and just, touching all the shirts and asking like if you have like, oh, do you have shirts that are like a mix of cotton and poly for this texture I want, or shirts that fit this certain description. You need to look up who might be local. That might be much better than doing online orders. Yeah, so one of the most popular blanks that artists like to use, and also I like to use, is the Bella Canvas 3001. And the reason why this is such a popular blank is that it feels decent. It doesn't feel like scratchy. So it's got a decent enough texture to it. It doesn't feel like a super premium t-shirt, but it's like nice, And it comes in like tons and tons of colors. Like there are so many color options for blanks for that one. And the cost is relatively like not that high with all the specs considered. So that is one of the most popular like blanks to use. I don't really like using like super cheap blanks, like some of the scratchy Gildan ones. Because, if I go to a convention and I see like a cute t-shirt that another artist is selling and I'm interested in it, and I touch it, and then I realize, oh, it's like scratchy, then I just put it down. Even if it's cute, if it's like not soft, I don't want it. If it's not comfy, why would you? Exactly. Like I know there's some people who would be okay with buying something that was not comfy just for the aesthetic, but I'm not one of those people. I would rather pay like just a little bit more to have something that feels a little bit more quality. And, if it's not comfortable, I'm not going to want to wear it, and I just put it down. Yeah, so my recommendation is, this is kind of an important point, but make stuff that you yourself want to use, which sounds like super obvious, but I think that a lot of people kind of can fall into this trap of like trying to save some costs or feel pressured into making something that they think will be popular, but they don't really want it themselves. And I think that it's just brought me a lot more success to make things that I wanted to use and have myself, because then I feel a lot more invested in the actual product itself. I live life in t-shirts. Comfy is important. True. I wear t-shirts like every single day, like max comfort in my home office. Yes, you need to like what you are selling. Otherwise, it's hard to sell things to people. Like, I'm not saying it's impossible, but you will have a lot of an easier time selling things to people if you like it yourself. Yeah, so with internationally produced things, I mentioned before, but you have a lot more freedom, sometimes too much freedom. This can become overwhelming for some people because now you have like all of the choices to make. It's a lot more complicated because you now have to decide on all of the factors like sizing, the way the material will drape, or, you know, how things are cut, how things are put together, all of the like little things you probably never thought about before, like zippers. So overseas production, like the pro and the con is that you have full custom control of everything. And also there's some barrier to entry with actually finding a factory, which we'll get into because I have a couple of stories about some bad run-ins I've had with factories. Okay, so then the other thing we need to consider before we make something, like this is still in the planning phase, okay, is fulfillment and shipping. This is a humongous barrier for most of the people who've asked me questions. Like, there's just like no way around it that like fulfillment and shipping is a humongous logistical problem, no matter what, for everybody. And so in the beginning, you're probably going to end up fulfilling a lot of the orders yourself, unless you use one of those services like Redbubble or something. Then, you know, you don't do anything, you just upload your design, whatever. But we're not talking about Redbubble. If we were in the Redbubble sphere, then I guess you guys wouldn't be here. So you're probably gonna start out with fulfilling orders yourself, and then later, once you get a lot more successful, then maybe you can hire someone else. So when you are deciding your type of merch you're making, you also need to consider like how you're gonna ship it. I mentioned before that charms and stickers are easy to ship because they're small, they're light, you know, you can just kind of throw them into a mailer and then, you know, slap a shipping label on it. But if you have something bigger, like apparel, plush, stuff like that, you need to think about like boxes or bigger mailers, how you're gonna actually, you know, package all of that and then, you know, get it picked up or sent to the post office or shipping services that you plan to use. So, speaking of shipping services, the most affordable and also the most reliable shipping service that I have used is actually USPS, which is the, you know, the government one. The one that, you know, there's post offices everywhere and it kind of, they look like they're struggling, they're run down, but they're trying. Yeah, so the nice thing about USPS is that, first of all, there's a lot of drop-off and pickup points. You know, you can drag all your packages to the post office, dump it in a bin there, and leave. And you can actually also make them come to your house and pick up packages from your front door. A lot of people don't know this, but you can have USPS pick up packages to mail for you. Like, all you have to do is pre-purchase the shipping labels online, and then, slap them on the packages. And then you go on to the USPS website and you can schedule a pickup and have them, you just write like, I have 6 packages and they're approximately this weight. And you can just have them come to your front door and pick up your packages for you. It's great. You used to sell TCG stuff and you never had any real problems with USPS. Oh my god, yeah. I've had so many issues with UPS. Like, I've had so much drama with UPS. And I'm like misdelivering things and then being like, yeah, I don't know where we delivered it to. You need to utilize that more because you're so lazy. Yeah. Honestly, we don't have time to be constantly making trips to the post office, so definitely utilize the pickup. Does it cost me a lot to ship to customers? In a way, so when people buy things from my store, I charge them shipping, right? And usually the shipping that I charge them is the cost of the actual shipping service, and then maybe plus 50 cents to $1 or something. And that 50 cents to $1 is meant to kind of cover some of the shipping supplies, but I end up footing a lot of the cost for shipping supplies myself because I've noticed nothing like tilts people like having to pay a lot for shipping. Okay, people like if they see the cost of an item is like $90 with free shipping versus an item that is $75 with $15 shipping, like I don't know, something about the paying $15 for shipping for the $75 item, even though it comes out to the same total cost, it just tilts them. Okay, so I just try to charge people for the service, and I'll try to like add a little bit in for the materials, but this is like one of those losses I have calculated I kind of have to factor in and make up for elsewhere. So I'm not saying that you should price your shipping and like handling a certain way or one or another. It's just a pattern I've noticed that people don't like to pay for shipping. Like the concept of it just upsets them. Versus paying like entirely for an item with free shipping. Like, I don't know, something about the human psychology is that's just how it is. So on the topic of shipping supplies and packaging, you will need to buy like certain supplies for your stuff. For things like charms and pins, this would be things like maybe bubble mailers, like little small bubble mailers, like 4x6 or 5x7. And then for apparel, I have like poly mailers, which are thinner and they don't tear very easily. So what I do is I wrap the t-shirt or the hoodie in some tissue paper, and then I seal it with like a sticker, and then I throw that into the poly mailer, and that's my packaging for like apparel and stuff. And then if I have like items that are bigger, like the plush, or if I have orders with multiple items or orders with things like desk mats, then I get boxes specifically sized for that. I try to avoid using boxes when I can because boxes are expensive. Boxes are so costly. Like, you can easily pay $2 plus per box depending on, the box specs or whatever. And you often have to buy boxes from, like, if you buy boxes from a place that actually supplies shipping things and not, from the post office. Because if you buy a box from the post office, you should be prepared to pay, like, I don't know, $5 for it or something. It's kind of ridiculous. But if you buy, like, boxes from, I don't know, like Uline or something, you kind of have to order them in large quantities. like 30 to 50 plus at a time or something. Yeah, don't buy a box from the post office. It's a ripoff. Don't do it. The boxes, okay, so the post office has two types of boxes that they carry, which is, first of all, there's the regular boxes, which you could get at Uline or Target or whatever. The second type is the priority mail boxes. So something you want to learn how to utilize well here is the priority shipping. So priority shipping is honestly, depending on the specs of your stuff you're sending with USPS, it's the flat rate boxes, and those can be like humongously advantageous to you. So they come in like small, medium, and large, and like the name suggests, they're flat rate. So the small one is like, I don't know, $7 something. Medium is like $13.50 or whatever, and the large is like, I don't know, $18, something like that. So you pay a flat rate, and they automatically have priority shipping like timeline attached to them. So that means they will arrive at their destination in 2 to 3 business days. And the only limitation that you have with what you pack into those is that it cannot be more than a certain weight limit, but that weight limit is something ridiculous, like 70 pounds or something. So as long as you don't ship like dangerous things, and if you somehow don't go over like the ridiculous weight limit, those priority boxes are super good. So the priority boxes are free. You don't pay for the box, you only pay for the shipping. But priority boxes would not be a good option in the event that your items are like very light, or if they don't fit into the priority boxes. There are some cases in which you might have an item that is more cost effective to ship in like a normal box with priority shipping instead of in the flat rate. Because if you, let's say like my desk mats, okay? So my desk mats, I can buy cardboard boxes for those, or like $1.25 or something, right? And then if I ship them with regular priority shipping, to most places in the US, that's like about $10. So then that's total like 11 something, right? To ship a desk mat. But if I put that desk mat into a medium size priority flat rate, then it would be like $14 to ship it. So, you're gonna have to do a little bit of like trial and error here yourself to figure out what is the best like shipping solution for you. But like shipping is just a very complicated topic. There's no other way around it. But I would encourage you to look at all of these options for like the flat rate and like those like little things that USPS offers, like package pickup from your house. Because a lot of people don't know about them. And there's a lot of little rules and stuff about it that are kind of hard to understand. But you'll only really understand them by like immersing yourself in it more. And you can start to get like a sense for what becomes the most cost-effective and most practical solution for whatever you're making. Yeah, shipping and packing stuff is just a pain, okay? There's no other way around it. Unfortunately, there's no shortcut there. One thing I would suggest is that you buy your shipping labels online at home, print them out, and then stick them to your packages and then drop them off. Do not go to the post office and make them address the package and charge you at the counter. That's a monumental waste of time, okay? That just takes too much time. Too much time, too much waiting around in lines, and people don't like it, okay? One of the better investments I've made for myself is buying a thermal label printer. Oh, yes. See? Right as you asked that question, I was addressing it. So, I used to use my inkjet printer like years ago, but a few years ago, I think maybe 2019, I bought a thermal label printer. Actually, I originally had a Dymo one because everybody was suggesting it at the time, but I have a better recommendation to give you, okay? Okay, so the Dymo one used to give me so much trouble. The Dymo one was like always glitching and crashing on me, or just like spitting blank labels and ruining things, printing stuff off center, whatever. So, for approximately the same price as I paid for the Dymo label printer, I got the Brother one. Let me see what I have. It's a Brother QL1110 NWB. So there's two versions of this. There's a wired one and a Bluetooth one. And let me tell you, the Brother printer is the way to go, okay? Forget about Dymo. The Brother one is the way. The Brother one, like it's just it does such a cleaner job for me than like I've had the Dymo one and I have spent hours fighting the Dymo one. The only downside with the Brother one is that the labels are a little bit more expensive than the Dymo ones, but you know, when I made the switch, I never looked back, okay? So if anyone is in the market for a thermal label printer, the Brother one is my recommendation. Yeah, I'm glad your Dymo has been treating you well, but if it ever dies, you know where to go. Yeah, it's like the Brother one is almost the same cost as the Dymo one, but I just had like so many more problems with the Dymo one compared to the Brother one. But on the general topic of thermal label printers, it was one of the best investments I made for myself. You save so much time. Like, if you have more than a few packages each week, then I would say just get a thermal label printer because it saves you so much time with printing and cutting and taping labels because now you can just peel them off and stick them, and you don't have to worry about water ruining the print and making them illegible or whatever. Oops. Ah, wait. I wanted to go back to my music. I lost my tab. Okay. Hello, Sade. Hello, Raiders. How was your stream? Thank you for stopping by. You guys did not see anything. Do not worry. Yes, hello, Sade. We're talking about merch making and we're deep into the shipping part right now. Yes, thank you for shouting out, Sade Sunny. Yes, so get the thermal label printer, guys. It's worth it, believe me. And so you'll also want to consider, while we're on the topic of fulfillment, storage. So we kind of already touched on this a little bit, but especially with bigger items like apparel, storage becomes a huge problem, okay? And even as someone who is kind of used to this, as I am, like, so I recently did some really big orders for new hoodies and stuff, like the bun and the boba hoodies, and so I ordered more than 1,000 hoodies total. And the full gravity of this did not hit me until I got the tracking number for the boba hoodies. So I'm already used to having an entire room taken up with like boxes of t-shirts and stuff, but okay, so the bun and the boba hoodies I have coming from two different manufacturers, right? So the boba hoodies, I got the tracking number a couple days ago, and I went to look at the package specs, and there's 23 boxes. Each box is about 38 pounds for a total of 887 pounds of hoodies. That's just for the boba hoodies, okay? And the bun hoodies, I ordered more of the bun hoodies than the boba hoodies. Which means there's gonna probably be like 2,000 pounds of hoodies total in my house that I will have to contend with. This isn't even counting like the bags, okay? I still have the backpacks and the fanny packs and things coming, so yeah. You guys, make sure you work out so that you can handle these things. Don't feel obligated to buy something just because I told you that I will have like thousands of pounds of stuff, okay though? Yeah, I actually do things like rock climbing and working out and stuff though, so I'm not I'm not like a house plant gonna die, but it's still gonna be a little bit a little bit of a challenge. I will definitely take pictures and show you guys the chaos as it arrives. I kind of scared my family the other day by bringing this up. Yes, being swole is important. Like we always joke about like like wimpy artist hunched over their chair, but for real, like it's important that you guys, you know, work out, especially your back. Very important. Work out your back muscles. Good for your posture. Yes, I will become absolutely jacked because of this. Yes, please lift carefully. Do not hurt your back, guys. Very important. Also work out your shoulders. Shoulders very important for posture. Shoulders and back, very important. Spreading the ring fit gospel. Actually ring fit, it really pleasantly surprised me. Like little sidetrack moment, but ring fit, I think it was just created with such a very careful approach in mind, and I think that's really impressive and admirable. The way that they have framed everything in Ring Fit is meant to be very encouraging, and also like they don't have outdated information. It's all pretty like recent. They don't have dumb stuff like stretching cold and whatever, or doing like static stretching only. The dynamic stretching is very important. Emphasis on form important. So yeah, big ups to Ring Fit. It is important for hauling merch. So another thing I want to talk about with fulfillment is the importance of setting up an inventory system for yourself. We're spending a lot of time on this slide. So the reason why you need to set up an inventory system for yourself is because, let's say you have a whole bunch of different designs of like charms and pins and whatever. You go to con, you sell stuff at the con, you come back, you have to count everything. And then you have to put on your store, and then you have to, make sure your store stock is accurate. You go to another con, and then you go through the same thing over and over again, like a few times that season. That's a lot of counting stuff over and over. If you keep track of an inventory system, you will not have to do that, which is important because we don't want to waste time doing stuff like counting things over and over again. And also, if you have a good inventory system in place, you don't have to shut down your store while you're at con. You can keep your online store open while you are at the convention so that people at the con or not at the con can, see everything that you have. So basically what I have been doing for my inventory, because I have like Tons of things. Dozens of items and like dozens of sizes for all those items because I do so much apparel, right? So, if you use Square to take your credit card payments at conventions, Square also has an inventory system baked into it. So you can set up your items in Square and then set up your stock for those items. So when you add things together at your table, when you're selling things, you can just, put in, instead of like having to remember your prices too, you just tap on the thing that says like, oh, acrylic charm, like, I don't know, Genshin Impact charm, Venti. You put your Venti charm in and it'll calculate, it'll remember your prices, so you don't have to like count everything up yourself at the table either. You don't have to do math. No more doing math. Math sucks. We're all too tired for math. We're like operating on 3 hours of sleep. So then once you run that transaction, it'll also deduct whatever was in that order from your store stock in Square. So you can keep track of your inventory in Square while you're at the convention, which is great. No more writing stuff down on a piece of paper or whatever. No more doing math. No more counting stuff after the con. Yes, I don't know about you guys, but I always sleep awful when I go to conventions. So I'm always operating on not the best state of mind at any given moment. Can you add cash transactions to Square Record? Yes, you can. You can add stuff as a cash transaction in Square. Like you just add your items like you normally would for a card transaction, and then press checkout, and then there's like two buttons. I think there's like cash and then there's card, and you just press cash instead, and then you just click through, and then it'll count it as a cash transaction. So on that front, I'm not paid by Square, by the way. I just have to say I'm not paid by Square or sponsored by them or whatever. This is the system that works for me, and I think it can help other people too. That's all. It's like it becomes a really convenient tool for keeping track of your sales numbers and your breakdowns and your metrics at the same time. So, yeah, please give me money. Square should sponsor me. So, it's really useful for keeping track of like the metrics and breakdowns of your sales for each day and stuff as well. So, you kill a lot of birds with one stone here. And this is a further step, but when it comes to hosting your online store, there's a few different options, right? Like there's Big Cartel, there's Etsy, which I don't quite recommend unless you don't really have any other options. There's Shopify. But Square has like a partnership or whatever agreement with Weebly, where you can set up an online store hosted on Weebly with Square already like baked into the store system, which is really convenient for me because it means when people order stuff on my online store, it deducts the stock from the same pool of stock that I use for my conventions. So that means I don't have to update my store stock every time I go to conventions because everything is already synced across the system with each other. And it also means you can keep all of your metrics in one place, all of your stock keeping in one place. It's just very convenient, okay? Your website's through Weebly. Oh yeah, just throw it out. Throw the whole Shopify out. Throw it away. Yes, so like I think a lot of people didn't know that was an option, but if you have especially a lot of items in your catalog, then this is a really good thing to consider. Yeah. Like, I didn't know about it either until I was like looking more into Square's inventory system, and then I was like, oh, they have like a Weebly thing. It's just really convenient. Okay, so if you have a lot of items like I do, highly recommend looking at that as an option. Let's see. Okay, so I think that's enough fulfillment talk for now. We'll go on to the next slide, which is, oh, okay, subject matter. So when you go to a convention, you typically see there's like a mixture of stuff people are producing, and it's something like 80% fan art and 20% original or something, right? Amogus, yes. So the reason why I put Sans Undertale and Amogus here is because when you make fan art of things and you sell merch of like other like copyrighted material, like people always like, you know, we make stuff that's like fan art of games and anime and whatever. For the most part, we sell it and people don't really come at us with takedowns most of the time. And that's because they have just chosen to let us fly under the radar, okay? Technically speaking, making and selling fan art of things is not quite legal. So people have kind of started to apply this mentality to other like indie games and stuff too, and that's where you start to get into some hot water, because a lot of the time, you know, imagine you make a game and you are selling it, you're like an indie dev, like a very small studio or something, or just even one person, your game is successful and people start making fan art of it, which is cool, but then people also start making fan merch of it, and the fan merch does explosively well, and you know, it starts to feel like other people are profiting off of your IP, right? So you had like a lot of these indie studios have policies around like selling or making fan work of their material that you need to be aware of and like sensitive to, because I've seen a lot of people make and sell merch of like indie game stuff that was very upsetting to like the indie devs. And you know, you don't want to be stepping on people's toes if you can help it, right? So 2 examples of this were Undertale and Amogus. Sus. So like they both actually have had merch policies in place that don't want you to mass produce and sell merch of their IP. And a lot of people ignored that, and it feels kind of bad. So I would really strongly encourage everybody to look into, you know, fan work and fan merch creation policies of any like indie games before they produce things. Yes, like you can make Genshin merch, but it has to be under a certain amount. Yeah, Genshin also has their own policy. Like I think it's less than 100 pieces of a design or something. Yeah, some companies that do allow merch. Sukeban. Yes. Yeah, so it's very important that you guys look into policies for these companies and stuff. On the topic of this, also, I want to mention how it's actually against company policy to sell fan merch of Hololive. And I know people make and sell a ton of Hololive merch, but I was recently reading through their policies and it's actually against their policy. So yeah, the problem here is that even if like if we remove the emotional component, right? of like, profiting off of other people's IPs or people not reading policies or not caring about them. The issue is that if you make all of your fan content and fan merch to sell and then you get hit with a takedown, you're not allowed to sell it anymore, right? And you are basically like everything you made is just then a loss. So then you'll have all this stuff sitting around your house you can't sell, you can't like make your money back on it. So, for the sake of your own protection, I would say it's pretty important that you keep this stuff in mind when you make things so that you don't end up in a situation like that. Yeah, because then at that point, the best thing you can do is just give it away, and yeah, you're still out however much money you spend on it, and you can't break even on it or anything. So, like, be aware. So, another thing I want to address here with producing fan content versus original merch is what it means for its value in the long term and short term. So, fan art tends to bring you a lot of very big returns up front in the short term because it's popular, right? The popular game or the anime of the season, everyone is hype about it, and fan art tends to sell really well because people already like relate to it and they know what they want. But by the same token, fan art loses its relevancy pretty fast. Like this has some leeway here. Like I think in my experience, games tend to stay a little bit longer in the cycle than like anime. But the thing with fan art is it's very temporal. It's fleeting. Like it's popular for maybe a couple months and then it kind of disappears. So opposite to that, original work tends to be not as popular up front unless you're already kind of well known for it. It's harder to sell to the masses in that, they don't already immediately relate to it. It's not, hyped up as something they've already been invested in through like games or anime. But in the long term, the life cycle of the value of your original content, it lasts a lot longer than your fan art. So like maybe if you make fan art of let's see, what was popular? My Dress Up Darling, okay? Of like Kitagawa Marin. Like, I'm pretty sure 6 months from now, Marin is no longer relevant. People won't be buying stuff of Marin anymore. So if you time your merch production poorly and Marin is no longer popular and you still have like 50 charms, then you're sitting on a loss there. But if you make original content, you're gonna have a harder time selling it up front, but you can continue reprinting it for maybe a few years or something. Like, I like Marin. I just have to put that out there. But with the cycle of how quickly people move on from anime, it's just people will not care about the same characters that they do now, like 6 months or a year from now. So that's like something you have to be wary of in your production cycle. It also means that if you don't have energy to keep up with what is currently hype at the moment, it's very easy for you to burn out because then you start feeling like, oh, I'm only drawing flavor of the month stuff. And you have to constantly be basically overhauling your entire stock of what you have available to suit the taste of what is popular at that given moment, which means you are constantly having to worry about how much longer will this character stay relevant, how much longer can I continue printing this item. You never considered how valuable original stuff can be over time. Original stuff, I think, is like, I'm not gonna lie, it is hard to sell your original stuff unless you already like built it up over time. But like I said, fan art is like the short term, and original is like the long haul. You have to be in it for a while for it to start like generating returns for you. It's fine to draw hype things without actually watching play. Yeah, I mean, if you like drawing hype things, like if you just like the design without having actually watched or played it, that's fine too. But yeah, like I used to draw a lot more anime fan art, and like I used to do a lot more of the like what's popular right now in this season. And I know there are some people who like really thrive in that, like constantly churning out the new popular thing, but that wasn't for me, I noticed. Like it really burnt me out after a while. So consider your own energy levels and what you have the capacity to constantly be creating, because the life cycle of certain types of merch is shorter or longer than other types. And another thing I want to bring up with fan versus original stuff is, in the same way that people move on from fandoms very quickly, a lot of people might follow you or purchase your work for a particular fandom. But then once that fandom is no longer relevant, or if you start becoming interested in a different fandom that is not their taste anymore, you've kind of lost your face in regards to like your connection to the art that they bought from you. This is just my thoughts, okay? So it's like opinions. But a lot of people who have very popular like fandom accounts with a lot of followers or something, or a lot of customers, when they move on to a new fandom, like a significant portion of their following or the customer base that is no longer interested in the new fandom, they kind of become like dead accounts to them. Like they stop interacting, they stop buying things, they stop being interested in what you are making. And I know that sounds really depressing, but it's just something to keep in mind, that, you know, relevancy is hard to keep up with, and drawing the flavor of the month thing is not for everybody. And it becomes easy to lose your own like identity and flavor if you're just, you know, always chasing that. Like, I'm not trying to put down fan content. I love making fan content. But I think a lot of people have this misconception that you will always be successful as long as you draw what's popular fan content. And I think that's not necessarily the case, and it's a lot harder to keep up over time and see consistent returns with over time. If you make original things, people will have an easier time tying that to your personal like identity and your body of work, because, you know, it's your original content that becomes your face. And when you use fan content as your face on social media, or, you know, to market yourself, it becomes a little bit harder for people to connect that with your name specifically when, you know, things move on and change. So I know that that's more like just my thoughts on it, but I think it's something that is worth mentioning. Okay, now we're back into actual production things. Sorry, I went off in a long tangent. Let me get some water. Drink water. Okay, things you need to know for production. Worthwhile tangent, people gotta know what they're getting into. Yeah, personally, I think there are so many angles and variables and things to consider with making merch that go beyond just making it, beyond just like drawing it and then having it produced. And I think that all these other factors are really worth considering if you want to see more like returns on your effort and your time and stuff. How long is this information session going to be? Let's see, I have like 1, 2, I have like 5 or 6 more slides. I spent a lot of time on the last one, so I think probably another 30 to 40 minutes at most for the information part. I'm not sure. I didn't rehearse or time this. I'm sorry. I've always been the kind of person who, like, when giving a presentation in school, I just did better when I did not rehearse my presentation. I just made a guideline and then went with it. Okay, so things you need to know for production. Terminology. I already mentioned minimum order quantity. Unit price. That is the price per piece. OEM and ODM. Okay, so when you produce things with a factory, there's 2 types of production. There's OEM, which is original equipment manufacturing, and I forgot what the D was. So ODM is basically when they have produced an item, say like a water bottle, and it's already set shape, set color, everything, and all you do is you tell them, I want to buy that and then resell it. This is what like drop shippers do. It's what a lot of like of those generic looking things on Amazon are. It's people who've bought these existing products en masse from like Alibaba or something, and then they resell them. Which, yeah, so you're basically not really creating anything new with ODM, okay? And then OEM is the more custom stuff, which is when you need to have custom things made for your project. So say if you are doing enamel pins, you need them to make a new mold for your enamel pin because, you know, they have to cast the metal and everything. So that would be OEM. We are more interested in OEM, obviously. So this will play into how you source manufacturers. If you're going to do this on Alibaba, I'll talk a little bit more about that later. But when you are searching for manufacturers, you want to make sure that they are an OEM manufacturer, not ODM. So other things you will need to know, depending on your merch type. For things like print, you need to know the difference between RGB and CMYK. What that means for printing is, you know, it's different color profiles. And everyone who's done printing knows you cannot just convert it in a 1-to-1. If you have certain colors, like say a really bright pop magenta, which looks great in RGB, if you convert that to CMYK, it is going to turn into this horribly ugly, muddy, like hot pink, but like with dirt in it kind of color. So if you are gonna do prints and stuff or art books, that type of thing, you need to be aware of the difference between RGB and CMYK. Make sure you work with those color profiles. If you're gonna be doing things like screen printing or enamel pins, you will need to be familiar with how to pick Pantone colors, which is hell. Every time I have to make enamel pins and every time I have to look for Pantone colors, I'm like, I can't believe this book has like 500 colors in it and I still cannot find the shade of yellow that I want. It sucks. But basically the Pantone color system is a formulaic system for which people can mix the same color formula so that they know it will be the same and consistent, like across batches and across like customers and whatever. Because everyone's screen colors on their monitor are calibrated differently, and people perceive color differently in photos versus real life. So this is where the Pantone color system is helpful, because if you have the Pantone color book, then oh, that's how this color will actually look printed, and not just me making guesstimates from like photos on my monitor. This is why enamel pins are not beginner items. Yes, this is exactly why enamel pins are not beginner items. So if you plan to be doing any sort of heavy merch production of enamel pins, or if you intend to do a lot of like printing, then I highly, highly recommend you get a Pantone color guide. The ones you will need for most common manufacturing is the solid coated guide, Pantone color guide solid coated. And they have different kinds like solid uncoated and different color books for different purposes and stuff. So make sure you get the right one, okay? The ones that enamel pins use are solid coated. And those you will need to find the color code in the little booklet and give that to your manufacturer when you request colors for enamel pins. A lot of screen printers will also use solid coated colors if you want to use a color screen print ink that is not in their, like, a lot of screen printers of apparel will have like preset colors that they already have mixed, like default available, and if you want a color that is different from that, you will have to give them the Pantone color code for what you want. Yeah, so Pantone, important. And if you want to do things like apparel or any like fabric thing, you will need to familiarize yourself with different fabric materials like cotton, poly, nylon, and like there's different types of printing and whatever, or different ways of treating fabric that only apply to some types of materials and not others. And so especially if you're gonna do like some fully custom, like big order stuff on Alibaba, you need to be very familiar with materials. So spend some time Googling about like the differences between, nylon and polyester, and like what you can do with like sublimation printing versus screen printing, because there's many different methods of applying colors and prints to fabric, and some of these methods are not compatible with all types. You also want to know about like fabric weights and heavyweight, lightweight, stuff like that. I had to do a lot of research on materials for hoodies and backpacks and stuff. So yes, that's just something that will vary per project, but you will have to, know about that. For more prints and stuff, you'll have to know about paper weights like GSM or like pound for thickness, and bleed, how to set up your pages so that you can get nice crops with color bleeding and not like have ugly white borders around everything. Let's see, where was I? Oh, okay. So, strategies for researching materials. I mentioned before that when you make t-shirts and stuff, you want to go into a local shop and touch all of the t-shirts and find the blank that you like when you do that, right? So, alternatively, if the shop that you go to does not have the blank you're interested in, you can try to find people who are selling singles of it on Amazon or eBay or something. Because most of the blank retailers, like Alpha Broder, they don't sell to consumers. They only sell to businesses, and you need like a code to get in. But sometimes people will sell random singles on like Amazon or something. So if you want to get like a sample of a blank, but your local place doesn't carry it, or if you don't have a local place, you can buy blanks for, I don't know, like $10 or something on eBay or Amazon. Okay, next. Oh, that was supposed to be this. Okay, another thing I want to bring up is buying existing merch for research. So, like, when I was figuring out the build for my backpack, I actually went and bought a backpack that or actually a couple backpacks. I bought some backpacks from another company that I really liked with a lot of aspects that I liked so that I could kind of like reverse engineer. And mostly what I wanted to figure out was their exact sizing for how they did the patterning. So like the length of straps, the length of the bottom, like the width of different things like the pockets and whatever. And then I kind of used that as a guideline to build my own like design off of. Like I didn't copy them or anything because that would be messed up. But it was like, I noticed, oh, their straps are like, I don't know, 30 inches. Is that like the industry standard? Because obviously I have no idea of knowing like how long I should ask for my straps to be when I have it made with the manufacturer otherwise. So I buy other existing merch for research to like reverse engineer their measurements and whatever. Also, a lot of people ask me like, oh, how did you go about like figuring out how to make so-and-so item? And honestly, or like they'll be like, oh, how did you know this manufacturer would make this item? Or does this manufacturer make this item? And honestly, I feel like a lot of the time I just asked. I know it's like approaching them to ask it's kind of intimidating, but you can get a lot of information just by asking. Like if you see like enamel pins and you're like, oh, I wonder if this manufacturer does the anodized rainbow metal, but I don't know if they do, and you just ask them. That's it. Or if you like, oh, can you explain to me the difference between this material or this material? Or sometimes I also ask the manufacturer to recommend to me. Oh, let me put the music back on. I also ask the manufacturer to recommend to me sometimes what they think would be a good solution for something. Good thing to remember, manufacturers usually want your money. Yes, they want your business. So, if you seem like you are a promising looking interested customer, usually they'll be happy to answer your questions. So, yeah, like if I am really stumped on something, like if I say, oh, I don't know which one of these fabrics is a good choice, sometimes, don't be afraid to ask the manufacturer, what is the recommended fabric for this item or something, or what's your recommendation for this thing? And then since they are familiar with their tools and their process and whatever, they will usually give you a pretty good answer. Okay, so here, this is a little look at the spec sheets that I made for the hoodies and the bun packs. So, things that you need to do, obviously you need to prepare your files. This will really vary depending on the merch type. For charms, if you have things like a different front side and back side, you'll have to send the manufacturer like a PSD with the layers with the front and the back and whatever details that you want included on different layers, like if you have transparency or like gold foil stamping or whatever. Some of them will have a template for this, some of them will not, so you have to like just kind of come up with your own. Typically for like Alibaba manufacturers, like the fully custom things, they don't have templates for things. You just kind of have to go at it and wing it. For pins, I mentioned you need to send them an Illustrator file with your vectorized design and also like a guide with your Pantone colors that you want. For complicated things, honestly, I didn't know what they wanted. So before I approached them, I made these design spec sheets where I drew turnarounds and breakdowns of all of the details, like saying like these are zippers, these are the measurements, 31 centimeters, this is how big the pocket is, this is how tall, this is what it looks like from the side, this is with or without the strap or, you know, the little ear ribbon, this is what the strap design looks like, this is what the zipper will look like. And on the hoodie, I also included like little dotted lines to show where I wanted the seams to be for the pockets and stuff. So even if your design seems kind of simple, it might end up being a lot more complicated than you anticipate once you start having to figure out like how to explain, I want all these details. And I think the more thorough you are, the more likely you will be to have an end product that you won't have to revise as many times to fit your vision. So it pays to spend a lot of time in your design phase to iron out and come up with as many like specs to address details as you can. Because sometimes revising samples, like manufacturers will be like, okay, you get 2 revisions for free. And after that, you have to pay more. And, you know, revising samples takes a lot of time. It adds a lot of time to your timeline, and you're kind of waiting for the manufacturer during that time. So if you want to expedite the process, start out with a clearer like goal in mind. The string on the jacket was a hard hitter for you. You love the design on the string. I'm glad, thank you. So yeah, take your time with ironing out your details in the design phase. It's worth it. Okay, so here is one of the most asked questions I get with production, which is the process of sourcing things on Alibaba. This is if you're producing things internationally. Generally, people will go to Alibaba, which is kind of like a big marketplace where manufacturers can advertise their services and, you know, buyers can go and buy ODM products or look for factories to work on their OEM stuff. So there's a lot of factors that might play into this. A lot of the time people approach me and they're like, oh, well, how do you know you're gonna get a good factory? And the spoilers, you don't. There's just a certain level of risk you have to assume when you go and, you know, you throw your money at some random people. Yeah, there's just there's some RNG involved. So, like, if you're gonna source stuff on Alibaba, you better have a budget set aside already with, you know, money that you're gonna be prepared to lose. That's just the unfortunate truth of it, because you probably will run into some bad manufacturers. I have. You probably will have to spend more than you originally budgeted in some cases. I have. There will be some bad eggs and some good eggs. It's IRL gotcha. So you may get screwed. You have to accept that up front. If you are not willing to accept, or if you are not in the position to accept that you might get screwed to a certain degree, then go back a step and make some lower risk items. Yeah, you need to assume that there are some losses and risks involved. So, like, when you search for things, you might, let's say, if you wanted to make, like, backpacks like I did, I think what I searched for was, like, custom OEM backpack, like that. And you start scrolling down the listings, and you can see, like, some manufacturers will have, like, review star ratings. So obviously you want to find one that has some good reviews, right? You also kind of want to pick a manufacturer that maybe has been in the business for a few years already, because you will see on their profile, like, how many years they've been doing it, how much experience they have. When you click through their profile, you can see all these stats, like their production capacity, like the range of how many employees they have, which kind of tells you, like, the size of the factory. The payment methods that they accept, very important. You want to make sure that they accept a method of payment that's compatible with you. Like, some of them only do bank transfers, which I'm personally not a fan of, because I try to put my merch purchases, like, on my credit cards. Oh, life hacks, by the way. My credit score is extremely inflated because of my merch purchases. Because there is so much, like, even if I am not making a ton of money, there's a lot of cash flow going in and out of my accounts because, I put in a large order for merch and then I pay it off. So it ends up inflating my credit score a lot. So, if you need that little bump with a few points in your credit score, easy way to bump it up a little. You can also filter by certain filters for manufacturers, like verified only. So Alibaba has this sort of, like, service where you can, if you are a factory, you can pay to have a third party that Alibaba has contracted with to come inspect your factory and make sure that it is in line with whatever regulations and whatever, inspect it, make sure it's, like, actually how you present it on your listing page. And then they get that verified, like, check mark, whatever, that they're a verified supplier. And that usually means that they will charge you a little bit more. Oh my god, it's check. Hello, a check mark. But yeah, I personally think it's kind of worth filtering by verified suppliers because, they've been vetted by a third party. So, little things to look for when you are looking for a manufacturer. You got the 60K Sky Miles with merch a few years back. Yeah! Actually, like, slightly unrelated, but there's so many good, like, credit card bonuses you can get with, like, the absurd amount of spending you do for merch production. So, yeah. So say you find a manufacturer that looks promising, you send them a message, and in my first message to a manufacturer to send an inquiry about a product I want, I say, hello. Oh, hello, Morinozuka. Yo, raid. Yes, hello, raiders. We are doing a merch talk. I hope your stream was good. Thank you for dropping in. So my first message to a manufacturer will be, here is my design. I'm interested in getting this design made, first of all, you want to ask, is this within your factory's capacity? Because you want to make sure they actually can produce the thing that you want. And then I also open with asking them what is their minimum order quantity for this design, as well as their estimated quote for the unit price. And then I also make sure to ask them what is their estimated turnaround time, and also make sure to ask them the price of getting a sample made. So those are the key points I bring up with a manufacturer when I'm first trying to start communication with them. You might have to throw out lines to a few different manufacturers. Yes, hello. Floofy tail raid. I like the tail emote, it's cute. Yes, you might have to throw lines out to a few different manufacturers, shop around a little bit. Some of them will be better at communicating than others. And then usually they'll start, communicating with you. You have to understand that since they are in a different country, English is not their first language, and the communication might be a little bit janky. You'll have to kind of read in between the lines to understand what they mean sometimes, because sometimes they'll be very blunt and sometimes their wording will be kind of hard to understand. And then, yeah, once you go through that, then you can, proceed as you see fit. My usual process, my timeline of how I do these is that after I approach them, then after I ask all those questions, if I decide I want to get a sample made, then I get the sample made. And then they'll send me the sample, and then I'll evaluate the sample, see if it's, if I want to go with that factory or not, or if I need revisions. Usually during the sample process, they'll send you photos of the sample that they're making before they actually ship it to you, to make sure that they try to get as much revising done before shipping it as possible. So after I get the sample, then that's usually when I conduct pre-orders, because I don't like to hold pre-orders or reveal too much about designs before I have the sample in hand, because my personal experience is that if you just show tons of works in progress of your design, sometimes it can kind of dilute the hype a little bit, and it's kind of harder to build up a nice presentation for the product when you don't have it in hand yet. Especially if your sample product or final product does not match the original drawn up design that you had. Sometimes it can kind of disappoint expectations, and people only know what you have decided to show them, right? So if you only show them the sample, then they have a better idea of what to expect already. You are away, yes. Sunny's back, thank you, Raiders. Thank you for shouting out the Yo Raid. So for that, then after I get the sample, I'll do nice photos, nice-ish. Most of the time I take all my photos on my phone at home. Learning how to take nice, presentable looking photos, very valuable, by the way. Presentation is so much of how well you are able to garner interest for your merch. Another reason why I don't like to post my design sheets online before I am ready to do pre-orders and stuff is because I've had cases in the past where I posted like mock-ups and then they were stolen. And you know, when you post mock-ups, it's like easier for people to replicate things. So that's just my method of protecting myself. Yeah, it kind of sucks. I have like some pin designs that are still like every month I have to go play whack-a-mole with people on Etsy who have stolen my pin design. So yeah, I only post images of the sample once I have it in hand, and it's just that's just worked a lot better for me. On the downside though, it means that if you happen to have something that coincidentally is similar to someone else's, you don't have a paper trail to defend yourself with if they come after you. So yeah, I mean, I guess you can post it on like a private account or something. Create insurance for yourself. Let's see. Okay, so after I conduct pre-orders, then I usually let pre-orders run for a few weeks, and then I'll put in the final order with the manufacturer, and they'll produce it, have it sent to me, and then I'll fulfill it, and then, you know, we're good. Okay, so something I want to address while we're on the topic of pre-orders is pricing. A lot of people also ask me, how do you go about pricing merch, right? So to some degree, we can kind of follow like the standards and conventions of what other people have commonly priced their items at. Like acrylic charms, most people will price them between like $10 and $15. That's like a pretty average price range, depending on the specs and the size and whatever. So coming up with the price for some items is not that hard. But say if you make something new, like a new item type, like for example, like my backpacks or something, then it's like, well, there's not really much of a precedent for that. So how do you come up with a price for a more unique item? And there's I heard from somewhere, I don't remember where, but in the world of manufacturing, that you want your retail price to be about 3 to 4 times your manufacturing price. And I know that sounds like a lot up front. Like, I'm pretty sure to some customers that might sound scandalous even. But you see, there's a lot of costs here, a lot of hidden costs we have to account for. So your production price, there's, you know, the production cost, but then you also have to consider there's fees, transaction fees when you place your orders, transaction fees when other people buy things from you, like credit card fees, stuff like that. There's also things like taxes, because, you know, everyone got to pay your taxes. Don't get caught for tax evasion. Don't do that. So transaction fees and taxes really add up. When you look at the transaction fees for something like Square or PayPal, they are maybe on average anywhere between like 3 to 5%, depending on some other factors. And you think, oh, 3%'s not that much. But then when you like do a lot of orders, or when you're calculating your entire income on something, let's say you have something that you're selling for $500, and 3% of $500 is $15. And, you know, that starts to add up. Once you have a lot of items you're selling, you actually find that you are paying hundreds or thousands of dollars in fees. So don't let the fees stack up and get you. That's like a big pitfall I see people fall into all the time. Another thing you want to keep in mind is do not undercut yourself your prices. A lot of the time people will not take into account the amount of time and energy that they themselves spent working on these things. Anything from the designing period to the time it takes to email and talk to manufacturers. I personally spend hours like talking with manufacturers a lot of the time to iron out problems and things. And then, there's emails with customers, there's time you spend on your social media promoting your items, or time you spend applying to conventions, time you spend moving your stuff, like organizing it, packaging it, sorting it, quality checking it, time and effort that you spend on creating like listings on your website or whatever, or promotional graphics or social media posts, or writing up your listings for things. Basically, there's just a lot of time that you spend working on these projects that a lot of people are not factoring into the amount they need to be paying themselves for. So in the grand scheme of things, 3 to 4 times your manufacturing cost is not the humongously scandalous number it looks like on the surface. At the same time though, I know that there are some cases where this doesn't quite match up. Like, say for me, like t-shirts. When I domestically produce t-shirts, the unit price per shirt is often anywhere between like $10 and $16 a piece. But the thing is with t-shirts, generally people are not gonna buy them when they go over $30 or so. So I'm kind of like locked into making my retail price for t-shirts like $30, right? And so with all these things considered, the margin on t-shirts ends up being extremely bad for me comparatively, especially when we put it next to something like enamel pins, because enamel pins, when you make 100 of them, maybe the unit price is like $1.50, and then you sell them for like $10 or something, right? But the thing is, I have considered that the t-shirt price, even though the margins are very bad for me, stuff kind of evens out a little bit in the long term, because the t-shirts are a very big attention grabber for me, and they really contribute to building up like my brand image. So sometimes it's okay to take like a smaller cut or a bigger loss on some products in order to like get gains elsewhere. So like not everything you make has to be generating the same kind of like returns for you as everything else, because there are some less tangible gains that you can be making. Thank you for subscribing with Prime. Yeah, I know that's more of a like conceptual thing, and it's something you're just gonna have to like make your own judgment on, but it's something worth thinking about, and it's something that I think about sometimes because my margin on t-shirts is not great, but it is contributing towards my long-term like sales in other ways. Okay, so we're getting there. We're almost done with the informational session. Sorry it's taking so long. I just had so much to cover. I really wanted to make this like very comprehensive. So the importance of presentation. This is very, 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 very important. If you guys are social media savvy, you will understand that presentation is a big deal. So on the left, this is a photo that the manufacturer sent me of the boba hoodie. And like, I'm not gonna lie, on the mannequin, it looks really unappealing. It's kind of ugly on the mannequin, like it doesn't drape right, The mannequin's face is making some weird duck face. The lighting is not flattering. You know, it's overall it's not a good look. Okay, mannequin's not doing it justice. And on the right, I mean, I'm not saying that I took a fantastic picture, but I tried to present it in a more appealing manner. You find the mannequin attractive? Good for you. The mannequin he's open and available just for you. He is single and looking. Body-kun. Oh, you'll say I took a fantastic photo. Oh, thank you, Check. So, yeah, really taking some time to, when you get your samples or your merch or whatever, try to take nice photos. Try to take photos with like the type of aesthetic and context that fits your image that you want. Because when people are clicking through social media or when they're clicking through your site, the photo is going to be all they have to know about the item. The mannequin needs to work on its voguing. You missed the pricing stream? It's okay. I'll be uploading the whole stream as a VOD to YouTube later, so don't worry. You can go back and find it later if you missed it. So, yes, presentation, very important. It is worth investing in some things like props to help set like the stage for your merch, like maybe fake flowers or, you know, getting some nice looking like hangers or whatever. I don't know. For smaller items like enamel pins, I bought these like these large colored sheets of paper or vinyl so that I can do like flat lay photos on top of them. And it just makes things look a lot cleaner. So yes, it is worth investing in buying a couple of props if that works with your image. You also want to spend time, you know, making sure your images are, you know, adjust the lighting or whatever, or cropped nicely for social media, because we all know things like Twitter and Instagram have some strange cropping rules. And you only have like a fraction of a second to catch people's attention when they're scrolling by. Which, you know, let's talk about social media. So, I don't know. So this will also, like, the presentation thing applies to conventions too. Like when you do your convention setup, you want to make sure people who are walking by, who will only be glancing for a few seconds, you want to get their attention, right? So social media is kind of the same way. People are scrolling fast, they're speeding, they got places to be. It might not be your post, but you want them to stop over and take a look, right? So it is worth familiarizing yourself with the rules of the algorithm for social media. Like, this really sucks. Nobody likes playing by the rules of the algorithm, but like, maybe you don't need to play by all the rules. You just have to know some of the more important ones. Like, you don't want your post to come across as like cringy, right? So, for example, on Twitter, you do not want to use like 10 hashtags. That looks desperate. Nobody looks at a post with 10 hashtags and is like, oh yeah, this looks like something I want to read. No, don't do that. And you want to make sure your aspect ratios are matching like the post format for Twitter or Instagram. So on Instagram, you know, that's like squares. You want everything to look nice in squares. In Twitter, it kind of depends on how many photos you attach to the tweet, right? They have different aspect ratios. You also want to make sure you are doing things like posting about, like if you have a merch release, that's a big post, right? That's an important post. You want to send that at a time when there is a lot of traffic on these sites. So for Twitter, Um, like analytics that I've read before have said that the busiest time on Twitter for like the American audience is between 10 a.m. and 1 p.m. approximately. So kind of like in the middle of the day when people are getting off on their lunch break and whatever, that's when they're scrolling Twitter. You don't what time zone though? That's why I said 10 to 1. Because it kind of covers the overlap between West Coast and East Coast. So I kind of yeah. I kind of try to schedule. Oh, using scheduling feature very important. If you forget or you want to make sure, everything sends at a nice time, use the scheduling feature. So a lot of the time I'll schedule posts for like 11 something a.m. Pacific. So it'll hit like kind of in the early afternoon for East Coast people and like in the late morning for West Coast people, which I think is a fair enough traffic time. Yeah, so you want to make sure you get the most visibility possible, and there's certain other little dumb rules you have to play by too. Like, you don't want to put links in your main tweet because links will deboost your tweet, which is kind of dumb. So don't put the link to your store in your first tweet. You could put it like in the replies afterwards. Tweets with images tend to draw more attention than tweets with just text, and if you're advertising your merch, you should be attaching images anyway. So this is why the presentation is important, okay? And you only want to use, if you're gonna use any hashtags, which I don't think I really recommend using hashtags on personal merch tweets unless it's like fan art, then you can use like the hashtag for whatever series or game it came from or whatever. But I would try to use no more than 2 to 3 hashtags at most. If you use more than that, it comes off as a little desperate, a little like in a bad way. And also, try to only use hashtags that are of trending things, because I've heard that Twitter will deboost posts that use hashtags that are not trending, which kind of is stupid because how else are tags supposed to get trending in the first place unless people use them? But yeah, I know Instagram has its whole other convoluted set of rules, but honestly, I don't mess with I don't put a lot of effort into Instagram because it's just too much. Too many hoops to jump through. My Instagram effort is minimal. But whatever your main platform of social media is, I think you should definitely familiarize yourself with the algorithm do's and don'ts, because it will be very instrumental in, the visibility of your merch. Personally, I don't really like hashtags, especially like on Instagram where you're kind of supposed to add like 30 of them. I hate it. I think hashtags are kind of a pain, but we live in a society. Be a famous YouTuber and ask people to use the hashtag. Yeah, if you have enough clout for that. Okay, one more thing before we get to the AMA, which is making your stuff accessible. I see a lot of people who, they'll be like, oh, nobody's buying my stuff, but then when you go to their profile, it's like you gotta click through their link tree, and their link tree has like 3 more things to click through, and then basically you end up having to click like through 5 or 6 different places just to get to their store. Don't do that. You want to make your stuff easy to find and accessible, so make it clear. Make sure it's very clear where your store is, and the less clicks people have to do to get there, the better. Like that's like a UX principle, you know? Don't make people do like a bunch of unnecessary clicking. It frustrates them and they don't want to do it anymore. My brand. Yes, try to be consistent with your branding to create a more memorable impression. So, like I said, this is really hard, especially for me, but if you have like OCs or something, or if you have certain colors you like to use in your color palette, try to stick to using that type of style of imagery and those colors a lot in like your presentation. Like, you know, when you make things and when you make your promotional posts, it's kind of important that you create a sense of cohesive aesthetic with yourself. If you have stuff that is all over the place, it becomes confusing in people's memories and they won't remember you as well. And you just don't leave an impression. So, I know that sounds really harsh, but the importance of, you know, creating cohesive branding for yourself, very important. Make sure you use like similar aesthetic across like your business cards, maybe your packaging too. Like I try to use packaging that matches like my colors that I often use online and stuff. Obviously there's a certain amount of room you have with this, and I'm not gonna... I forgot to add at the beginning the disclaimer that all of this is just based off of my personal experience, and there's no like one right or wrong way to do things. These are all just entirely like things that I have come to the conclusion to from my own experience, so your mileage may vary. But yes, be consistent with my brand. I think that is all that I had to say. So now we are at the Ask Me Anything section. I think I'm sorry, I made the informational section very long because I was trying to be very comprehensive and touch on as many things as possible, but please give me any questions you have that I did not address. I need to get a drink of water. I am thirsty. Where's my water? Oh, by the way, Kels drew this. Do you like it? She drew it just for me. Hydrate. Okay, thank you. Stretch. Okay, stretch. Big stretch. Drew what? Can't see anything. Oh yeah, I don't know. There's nothing there. TY so much for setting up the stream. Yes, I hope it was helpful to people. Okay, let's there's a couple questions here. How do you think is the best way to collaborate and reach out with an artist for apparel or mousepad? Like do you mean as if you are not an artist yourself, like trying to contract with an artist to do a merch design for you? I think my music stopped again. Hold on. Oh, trying to contract an artist. So first, I am an artist, and so it's a little bit difficult for me to speak from that position because I haven't really been in such a position before. But I think first you would want to make sure that the artist that you are trying to approach, you want to see that they have done work that is similar to what you have in mind. Because this would be commercial use art, yeah. And like, I guess there's a lot of like what ifs here, because if you are intending to head all of the stuff like the production, whatever, then you would just need them to draw the assets for you. But, you know, I'm not sure if this is like a question of like, how do I contact somebody to do the entire process of me, like contacting the manufacturer and whatever, or if it's just like you need to contact the artist in order to hire them to draw the graphic assets for you. But yeah, if you are like, most of the time when I've done merch for other people, they already had someone else in mind for producing the merch. I have a couple of contracts going on like that right now, where they just commissioned me or contracted me to draw the assets, and then they have their own factory they're working with for production. You should expect to pay, like, at minimum, like $600 for commercial use of any merch. If someone charges less than that, they are not charging enough, honestly speaking. Yeah, so I would say that the minimum price for commercial usage art, yeah. That's why you want to ask, because they aren't charging enough. They might not, like, this is kind of a difficult topic for a lot of people because they don't know how to value themselves, or they don't understand quite what the concept of commercial usage amounts to. But I think, like, if you already have someone in mind and you're already in negotiations with them, then you can just flat out offer them, like, this is the set amount that I am offering for this job, if you think they're not paying them, if they're not charging enough. And then, you know, stress to them that, like, this is something that will be reprinted and that I will be selling for commercial use. It would be important, I think, if you are doing something for commercial use, to have a terms of use and like contract written up, just like a written agreement that has all of the, like, you know, important terms of use outlined, so that later there's no misunderstandings. Like, you will have to explicitly state that you will be reprinting it and selling it on merch and stuff, and what you are paying them is a upfront flat fee, and that it won't have royalties or whatever, if, you know, because royalties are kind of a pain to work out. So if the person you are approaching is being kind of wishy-washy, I would come to them with a solid set of, like, here is what here's the range I'm willing to pay, or here is the price that I'm willing to pay, and here are the terms, and would you like to do this job? Because then if they're not being if they're not, you know, being clear, then at least you are being clear and you set things on your own terms, and then they can decide whether they want to work with that or not. And if they don't, then at least you have your terms already worked out for the next artist that you intend to ask. I think I answered that. I think I answered your question, but if I didn't, let me know, because I was having a little bit of difficulty parsing the meaning at first. Okay, so the question from Snowpix: when starting an online store, how many products do you think would be a good amount to start with? I think It kind of like depends on the type of product you plan to make. If you have like a big ticket item, like if you have a very like specialized thing, like if like for example the bun hoodies that I made, I think you could even get away with like having just one item on the store. But if you're gonna start with something like charms and stickers, I would try to do a few designs of each. You're thinking of doing acrylic charms for now? So I think what matters more than the quantity of like items you have, like in terms of like different designs, I think it's important that they're cohesive. So if you have like 5 acrylic charm designs, you should do them all from the same series. Don't have like one each from like 5 different series. So if you, like, I kind of said this before, but depending on how much money you have to throw in to start with, I would say like at a beginning, 3 to 5 acrylic charm designs is okay. Because things look more appealing in sets when they're like together with other things, and one-offs of like 1 or 2 characters like they typically don't do so well by themselves. So if you do acrylic charms, I would have like maybe a few different like 3 to 5 characters from the same series, if that's like if there are enough characters to do that. Alternatively, if there's only like 2 important characters in that series, then I would do like 2 acrylic charm designs and maybe some stickers also from the same series. You know, when you have the context of other matching items, everything looks more appealing altogether. It's super helpful. You just wanted to get an idea from an artist's perspective what the usual pay structure would be. Oh, okay, yeah, no problem. I hope that was helpful. Yes, personally, I think no commercial work should be less than $600. That's like minimum. Yes, okay, I think I got both of those questions. Yeah, okay, so I'm gonna drink water again. If people think of any other questions, feel free to toss them at me. Otherwise, I'll ramble about a few other things. Oh, I wanna bring something up real quick about PayPal. You gotta head out. Okay, yes, thank you for stopping by. Hope it was helpful to you. About PayPal, so a lot of artists use PayPal as a method of payment, but I think you guys should be careful about that. First of all, because when you do business with PayPal, do not treat PayPal as a bank. Do not keep money in your PayPal account. If possible, I would like transfer it out to your bank account regularly. Like if you get a large amount of money, transfer it out like right away or soon, regularly, every couple days or something. The reason being, PayPal has kind of a dramatic history with artists with freezing their accounts, and then your funds, especially if you're producing things for, you know, merch, can get frozen, and then you won't have any money to place your orders, which will set your timeline back way back, because sometimes your funds can get frozen for many weeks. And I heard this happen to a few really prominent artists already so far. I have not personally had any issues with it to date, but like, you know, it's something be wary of. Yeah, don't keep money in your PayPal. Move it out. as soon as possible. And be aware that if you are taking pre-orders and you use PayPal to process your pre-orders, if your pre-orders don't ship within a certain time frame of receiving payment, PayPal is more likely to flag your account and freeze the funds. Because PayPal has like a certain like ship period or whatever for pre-orders, and I have heard of this really messing up plans for other collaborative merch projects for like zines and stuff before. So yeah, beware, be careful, tread carefully with PayPal. Is an emote artist, so she doesn't have to move large amounts of merch, but it sucks. Yeah, so be careful, beware. Do I know off the top of my head which piece is my best seller? So actually, technically, I think I think the new bun hoodies are currently actually the best top seller, which is really surprising to me because I've only had them online for like a couple, like a month and a half or something. But prior to the bun hoodie being made available for pre-order, my most popular item was probably the Control Z hoodie, the undo one. Let me go find it. This one. Yeah, this was my most popular item prior to the bun hoodie. They're really cute, you're not surprised. I guess, you know, because I've had the Control Z hoodie available for like a few years now. And the bun hoodie has only been available for like less than 2 months. So it was just kind of like shocking for me to see the Control Z hoodie like be dethroned so quickly, just overtaken entirely. It's a nice hoodie, thank you. You know, I originally made it with artists in mind, but it turns out a lot more people related to it than I anticipated. Everybody relates to undo. Okay, yes, I think unless anybody has any more questions, then we will be just about donezo for today. I'm not gonna... I might do like another, like one stream or something before I leave for MomoCon because I'm gonna be super busy with con prep. When is the exam? There is no exam. The exam is when you make things. The exam is getting tested by real life. Took a lot of notes, ready for the exam. The exam is when you actually make stuff and then you have to throw your actual money down. That's the real test. You'll pay the tuition for this course in gift subs? You don't have to. Oh, but thank you. Thank you for gifting 5 subs for your tuition. Yes, thank you so much. You didn't have to, because I just wanted to make this like a resource for people, but thank you. Hope your exam grades are good then. Yes, I hope everybody aces their merch exams when they put things out into the world. Hope everybody makes good merch. Next stop, examining your bottom line. Yes, I think I covered everything that I wrote notes about. TY for the stream of good night. Yes, have a good night to you. Let me... Oops. Okay. Let us see... where's my Twitch window? Yes, if we have no more questions, then we're gonna pick someone to raid. Oh yeah, I believe Ugu just came back from her break, so we can go say hi to her. You don't have any plans to make merch anytime soon, but this was still a very insightful, entertaining stream. I'm glad. If everybody found it entertaining, helpful, then I'm glad. It was worth the time then. Yes, I think we will be raiding Ugu. So, we have Discord and Twitter. Let's see, Discord. And I always put like merch updates, stream updates, all that stuff on Discord and Twitter. So if you want those things, then that's where you can find them. I will let you know on social media when the next stream is, whenever I get around to planning it, because I've been so busy. Yes, I hope everybody has a good night. We will raid Ugu, and I will get back to the grind for con prep. Yes, have a good night.